A clash of values, that is the topic of tonight's Byline. Some good news stories and some bad on the topic of Canadian values tonight. We have news of a Canadian jihadi being killed and people trying to spread the jihadist ideology here at home. But there is some good news that I want to get to first. A judge in Ottawa has sentenced the mother and her son to jail time and harsh probation after their tormenting and harassment of a female family member who just wanted to date a boy. Ikal Bibi, the mother, was given a 5-month jail sentence, and Kawar Saeed, her son, was given a 7-month sentence for running a campaign of harassment and intimidation against Bibi's then 22-year-old daughter. Bibi was also ordered into language classes. Both were ordered into cultural integration programs. How bad was the harassment? Screaming, threats of violence, and violence itself. "If dad doesn't kill you, I will," one of the texts from Saeed to his sister read. Her crime? She wanted to date a white Canadian boy, and the Muslim family from Pakistan objected, claiming her actions were bringing shame to the family. The father, Mohammed Saeed, well, he's already been sentenced to 10 months in jail for his part. According to Tony Spears' report in the Ottawa Sun, Justice Monique Metivier ordered Bibi, a 49-year-old Pakistani woman who speaks no English, to learn the language and to learn Canadian values. She also said that the crimes of Saeed were committed, they were rooted in gender discrimination, and also that the cultural norms under which Mr. Saeed was operating are antithetical to Canadian values. Justice Metivier rejected calls for a sentence in the community, saying, "I cannot find that a sentence of time served in the community would sufficiently denounce and deter this particular offender and others similarly inclined." Bravo! Bravo! And I say it's about time we see more of this. And this all stands in stark contrast to the story of Aska Parvez, killed by her father and brother. They eventually got life sentences in what can only be described as an honor killing. But when the story broke in 2007, much of the media and the chattering classes were silent. They didn't want to deal with that side of the story. This to them was a murder not like any other, and they didn't want to look at one where the perps claimed they were justified by their culture and religion in killing a female family member that brought them shame. But Justice Metivier, and well, she's saying what many average Canadians say on this, that this is simply unacceptable. We need more Canadians willing to stand up and denounce the unacceptable rather than simply turning a blind eye. Now, the bad news, people with views that run against everything Canada stands for, well, they are here and they want to have their way. News today that a 20-year-old man out of Hamilton, Ontario, was the latest Western jihadi to die while fighting with ISIS. Mohammed, or M3 as his friends called him, he might be the first Westerner to die as a result of the airstrikes that have just been launched. He was from a Somali family, but he was raised here. He went to Catholic high school, St. Thomas More, the same place my cousins and so many people I know graduated from. But then he joined up with the jihad. There's a good chance we'll hear that he joined because he was a young man looking for adventure, or that he was radicalized online. Maybe. But we have to acknowledge that there are also people doing what I consider some pretty radical things here, in the wide open. There's a mosque near Toronto that has been in the news before for its controversial plan to build a massive Muslim-only condo complex in the middle of a very Jewish neighborhood, but also because of what schools associated with that mosque were teaching. I'm speaking of the Jafari Center in Thornhill, Ontario. This was the place that was subjected to a hate propaganda investigation by York Police after complaints about the curriculum being taught to young people. And it was found to include sections about the crafty Jews being compared to Nazis and disturbing passages on jihad. This was what they were putting forward to the minds of 13 and 14-year-olds. Well, that same center just 2 years ago was also putting on a school play that involved very young children either participating or watching as they engaged in beheadings. In video supplied to me, children at the Jafari Center acted out beheadings.
"And since you are disobeying Allah's command, I will not obey your command." The children then asked him to allow them to pray 2 rakats a lot, as they knew their end was in sight. The children had finished praying, and the son-in-law beheaded the older brother and then the younger brother. The son-in-law threw away the bodies of the 2 young children and brought the heads to Ibn Ziyad.
Here are the heads.
Here are the heads. Does anyone else find it disturbing that whatever the reason, there are children acting out beheadings, especially in a mosque that already practices the kind of segregationist and supremacist ideas that Justice Metivier was just announcing in Ottawa? The people at this mosque are not integrating into Canadian society. They segregate themselves, be it with their clothing or trying to build their Muslim-only complex. And given what we know was already being taught in the school associated with the mosque, more questions need to be asked and answered. And that's the byline.